Welcome to 10 things players hate about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and why you might think twice before buying the game. It's been a while since Sparking Zero came out, and these are the problems that I see the community complain about the most. Just want to say, I try to rank the problems from less important, number 1, to most important, number 10, and I will give my opinion about each one. So, without further ado, number 1, lack of characters and character customization. Although the game has over 180 characters and more coming in DLC, there are a lot of people angry and sad that their favorite characters or more fusions aren't in the game. There are also lots of people complaining about the lack of customization for a full-fledged game. Look, I understand people love some characters and they wish that they were in the game, but there were 98 characters, or 161 with transformations, in Budokai 3, and there are 110 or 182 with transformations in Sparking Zero. So it is a step up and makes me happy Bandai makes sure certain criteria is met. And I don't really care about the items, but I do wish every character had at least one skin or a color variant. Number 2. Lack of maps. Some fan favorite maps aren't in the game, like the ice stage. So it's impossible to recreate many fights, and while Budokai 3 had 35 stages, there are only 12 in Sparking Zero at launch. We must take into consideration though that maps are much larger and detailed in Sparking Zero. So, because they are much larger and therefore take more to make, more resources, and we can ask for more and more, but should also respect the work the devs put into the game and understand probably they focused more on something else than variety of maps, which doesn't mean there won't be more maps in the future, of course. Number 3. Corrupted data. So this never happened to me, mainly because I play on PC, Master Race. But PS5 players are reporting alarming times that their data gets corrupted and the game may reset, making you lose all progress. Also, some people say playing online matches with mods may corrupt your files, especially the stories people can create. So because this is something I'm not familiar with, I won't speak much on it. But it is terrible, just terrible that some people feel like they lost time of their lives and all their progress in the game. So I really hope this gets fixed ASAP. Number 4. Boring Z-Vanish battles. Z-Vanish battles seem fun at first, but after the first days people started complaining it was way too easy. Anyone can do it with some practice, and it should be changed to make the game more fun and less boring and repetitive. I do agree, and I think it would have made for a more fun game if it was different. And I guess the betting on your enemy failing the Vanish, trying to clutch a super counter, or letting yourself even get hit just to save you some ki is interesting. I still think a clash or letting us choose to continue or to stop strike and do something else would be more fun in my opinion. Number 5. Story mode and presentation is mediocre. Arguing that other fighting games, like Mortal Kombat, have made story mode something incredibly cinematic, fans say the slideshow method is outdated and there is a lack of important fights from some characters, like all Vegeta's fights from Super for example, and that makes fans extremely sad and frustrated. So, if you thought about buying this game for the story, I think you should reconsider. But at the end of the day, this is a fighting game, and I didn't expect much from story mode, so I was super amazed and happy about the interesting what if stories and such. But unfortunately, they do not really make up for the lack of iconic fights that are missing for most characters. It really seems the story mode was rushed and ultimately left behind, which would be fine if they just focused on finishing the story of fewer characters, instead of giving a little bit of story to many like they did. By the way, if you are enjoying the video, be sure to give it a like and maybe subscribe? Anyway, number 6. After image strike and instant sparking. These abilities are major problems for the community right now. New and old Budokai fans have been complaining non-stop that they really should tone down these abilities, arguing that, like in previous Budokai games, there should be a downside to using them, like the key sickness that made the character recharge ki much slower after using one of these abilities, and that stocks should build up slower, like in the previous games, in order to players to not be able to spam these powerful abilities with no downside. Okay, I really do agree these abilities are way too powerful to be able to be spammed and can make match super unfun and unbalanced, but not as we expected. The problem is that this game is meant to be unbalanced, because some characters are just stronger than others in the series. These abilities are making characters that should be weak way stronger just for the abilities being broken, like for example Videl. Number 7. Rage quitting in ranked. Now we're getting serious. So for some reason, rage quitting, or just closing the game, or just being disconnected, does not give the one disconnecting a loss, making it a horribly common thing that sweaty players with no honor will disconnect just before losing with no repercussions. This obviously is unfair and not healthy for the game at all. It's the weirdest move, most vile decision I've ever seen in a game with a ranked mode to do this. Even casual mode in most games make the player that disconnected get the loss. I really don't understand this decision. It's really toxic and makes disconnecting a viable technique to rank up and inflate your win rate. Numberino 8. Camera and the lock-on system. People are angry at the camera and the lock-on system. In Sparking Zero, there is no way to lock on or lock off manually. So, if the player wants to look away from his opponent and appreciate the stage, he needs to get unlocked from the opponent by dying in DP battles or getting ulted, or if the opponent uses a blink ability like an instant transmission. It is a very common problem for the players that even if the opponent is right in front of them, the camera won't lock on directly, making it so if you attack, you'll probably miss. And since there is no button dedicated to locking on, the only option players have is to wait for the game to auto-lock on, which has proven to be very inconsistent, leaving players vulnerable and very angry. So for me, the camera is a real weird problem, making some abilities way stronger than they should be, like when my opponent instant transmissions right in front of me and I dodge, is attacking knowing is gonna be right behind me. It takes a few seconds for the camera to lock back onto my opponent, giving him plenty of time to start his combo on me, and even though I just completely outplayed him by dodging his attack, the game doesn't allow me to lock onto him and capitalize on the outplay. I think a dedicated lock-on input would fix this. Numberina 9. Annoying little to no counter playstyles. Some playstyles feel like they have no counter, and players have been complaining. For example, Z Broly players tend to always do the same. Get into sparking mode, spam ki blasts around you, and use their ultimate attack. Since players are normally blocking the ki blasts and the ultimate is unblockable, it is very hard to dodge or vanish it, making it very easy for someone to pull this off. And after that, a smart Broly will just use instant sparking and do the whole thing over again, making for a very repetitive and unfair match, leaving players extremely angry. Others complain about after image strike and abuse in DP battles, since there are a bunch of low DP characters, like Videl, that have this ability. It's normal to see full teams made of these characters, like Pan, Master Rochi, and, as I mentioned, Videl. They have very small costs, but with this powerful ability, they can make easy work of many higher DP characters. Since we get meters so fast during matches, it usually feels like they always have after image strike active. In my opinion, after image strike and instant sparking are very strong abilities, and without any downside in sparking 0 like there was in the previous games, that being key sickness, paired with the fact meter fills up crazy fast in this game. It feels like the abilities make supposed weaker characters into forces to be reckoned with, and forcing players to play a certain way for the majority of the match against them, being spamming key blasts against the after image spammers, or flying up and down against the instant sparking spammers. It's not very fun when you are forced into a specific way of playing so often during matches. I feel, like many people, that simply making these abilities more expensive would go a long way to making the game more fun, even when facing these abilities. Because as of now, the max meter is 6 and these abilities cost only 3, making them usable back to back, which I believe is what makes them feel so unfair and repetitive, apart from being super strong as well. Also want to mention the giant stack, which is when they just spam dash attack. It's unblockable and undodgeable, making it so the only way to counter it is with perception, but it costs 1 skill bar, so obviously they can spam it way more than you can counter it, especially if they go into sparking mode. Then they will just spam it more than 10 times, making the match unfair, unfun, and basically a torture. Finally, number 10. Input problems. This is my major problem with the game, and one that frustrates me beyond belief, as it does many other players, and it consists in the player doing the input for usually a super attack or an ultimate, and needing to spam it before it actually comes out, usually looking at the characters doing some other action than the one the player intended. For example, with standard controls, me and others have shared recordings of finishing a combo at throwing the opponent flying. This is the perfect time to use a super, since the only way for the opponent to not get hit by it is by vanishing it, which can be hard. So the player will do the input for the super, for example in the standard on the PlayStation controller. If you click circle, you will do perception, but if you are in sparking mode and click R2 and circle, you should do your ultimate. The problem is that sometimes this problem will make it so even though you are clicking R2 and looking at the mini menus for the supers, when you click circle, instead of doing their ultimate, the character will do perception like if you weren't clicking R2. Usually, if you spam it, it will work after some tries. The problem is by the time it works, your opponent has already recovered from the combo and will be blocking or dodging your super, leaving the player punished by the game without any good reason simply because the game failed to read the inputs of the player. So, if any other problem in the game wasn't fixed, but this was, I would be extremely happy and would be able to recommend the game to all my friends. But with such a fundamental thing being broken in the game, I cannot in goodwill recommend this game. Even if I love the game and they did a great job making it fun and awesome at times, the feeling of being punished by the game for no good reason really leaves me feeling like this is a full-priced beta test of a game, and that should not be acceptable. Really hope they fix this problem sooner than later, because they have proved to be hearing the community with the nerf they did to Yajirobe. So, some quick bonus problems to consider. So, the net code is ass. The more far the opponent is, the more ass it is. Although it's normal for an anime game, it's still annoying. There is no crossplay, so there are a lot of people complaining in Xbox, for example, that there are no players to play with. A tip for you, Xbox players, I've heard that if you play with items, it will be faster to find opponents. Just letting you know. So that's it! there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments below. I would love to know about any problems or anything you have experienced. And as always, have a good one.